Good evening, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So some less than desirable job numbers came out earlier today, and everybody started flipping out about how the Federal Reserve is going to be dropping interest rates. In fact, I'm reading articles about how it's game over, and it's not a matter of if but when the Federal Reserve drops interest rates. And I thought, that's it? It took some weak job numbers, and the Federal Reserve is going to fire off their bullets? I mean, what happens when the numbers come in bad? Isn't the Federal Reserve supposed to drop interest rates when there's like a recession and people are crying about how there's blood in the streets and they've lost everything they've owned? Anyway, got me thinking about what Jerome Powell said the other day about how inflation is transitory. It's in transition. We just haven't seen it yet. And that kind of goes along with this article that I was reading about how people are willing to take out higher monthly payments on their auto loans now than at any time in history. So they're willing to pay more monthly payments right now than at any other time. So why haven't we seen this inflation, even though we've had record low unemployment? So typically when unemployment gets that low and people start getting this new jobs, getting new money, start spending that money into the economy, the money starts chasing the goods and services out there, and the more money you get chasing goods and services, that's money velocity, and the prices start increasing as these goods and services start demanding more of the money that's out there in circulation. But we're not seeing it, except that we might be seeing it right now on these auto loans. And I personally work at a lumber yard. I sell retail hardware. And I'm starting to see the retail hardware items start to kick up, especially those that are coming from China. So we're having price increases there at the lumber yard due to the tariffs that are hitting China. So inflation is starting to show itself. Now what I find interesting is that the Federal Reserve is sitting on their hands until September. And this makes a lot of sense that they want to see if the inflation actually starts kicking in or not. And if it does start kicking in, I'm having a feeling that we're going to be running into stagflation because you got mass store closures going across the nation, auto plants are shutting down, lumber mills are shutting down, right? This is production, this is the growth that is slowing down. At the same time, you have prices starting to increase. That is stagflation. And there's another problem with these interest rates. It comes with these pension funds. So if you're not familiar with how the pension funds and what kind of situation they're in right now, is that pension funds are underfunded. The amount that they have and the amount that they have promised all the pensioners is a huge gap. And the money they have to get an interest rate attached to that in order to start closing that gap. And in order to do that, they need to get around a 7% interest rate. And they're not getting it out of U.S. Treasuries, the safe haven asset. They have to go into risky corporate bonds. So what's ended up happening as these interest rates have been dropping, they've been buying up corporate bonds like crazy. Now this is awesome so long as interest rates keep going down, because the bonds that you hold go up in value. So if you're not familiar with how bonds work, bonds are just like a loan, they carry an interest rate. That interest rate, if it starts to drop on the new bonds that are out there, the one that you hold that pays a higher interest rate, you get to sell that for a premium. But it goes the opposite way. If interest rates go up, then the premium that you sell yours for diminishes and you don't get to sell yours for as much. So when interest rates go up, bond prices go down. When interest rates go down, bond prices go up. So it's awesome if you're holding a bunch of bonds so long as interest rates continue to drop. Plenty of buyers out there. But the moment that the interest rates start to rise, it's like the hot potato and nobody wants your bonds because they keep dropping in price. You have to sell them for less and less in order to make up for the premium that you're no longer getting from the higher interest rates that are on the new bonds. Make sense? So these pension funds are sitting in a very peculiar situation. If interest rates drop, it's going to force them into even riskier assets that they're already into. It would force them into even riskier ones. And here's the problem. If you're right at the very edge of risk levels that you're allowed to take and interest rates go up, you could lose the status of being able to hold on to those bonds. So as a pension fund, you are required to hold on to a certain level of security with a certain amount of risk. And if that risk is too risky, you have to sell that asset. Well, we just talked about that. If you're holding a whole bunch of bonds as interest rates go up and you're forced to dump those bonds and nobody wants them, now what? So interest rates for pensions are in a bad place if they drop, because it's going to force them into even riskier assets. And if they go up, their bond portfolio goes to zero. Well, it doesn't go to zero, but it goes small. It gets the gap between what they owe and what they have widens. So pension funds are in a very, very, very tricky situation right now. All right, Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.